Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Tiffany. It's a Thursday and I am here to finally start recording another reading vlog. I have filmed this, well, the start of it like 3 times. This is the 4th time and I had to stop it and delete it and redo it because I kept going on tangents. That seems to be my personality lately, is just like going on tangents. So I'm gonna try to keep myself in check. So let me quickly talk about the 2 books that I recently read, and then I'll talk about some of the books that I'm reading. So one of the books that I read, this bad boy, Tender of the Flesh by Agustina Bastarrica. I was so excited to read this book, and while I was reading it, I was so frustrated and disgusted. And then at the end, I was so annoyed that I literally threw the book. But I still think it's a good book worth reading. So this book, for those of you who don't know, is, I'm very like grossly summarizing here. But essentially it is about the world in which, in the future, where like animal meat is all poisoned and so it can't be eaten. And so they get rid of all the animals. And then they start eating other humans for protein. And they, like the main character, he works in one of these meat processing plants, and so it kind of talks about his experiences with all that and his observations. And at first, I am no longer on Goodreads because fuck Amazon, but before I canceled my Goodreads, follow me on Storygraphs, by the way, if you guys have it, or link your username below. But I think I too quickly rated this book negatively because I was just so disgusted with like the graphic horror of it all. I always think I'm not going to be disturbed by graphic descriptions and images because I've seen so much and I've heard and read so much. But it always bothers me. And somehow that always surprises me, which I guess is a good thing. Like, I don't want to become desensitized to that. I think that's a problem when we become desensitized. But so I think my initial like dismissal of the book was in part because I was just really overwhelmed, especially like the descriptions of humans as like flesh, as like objects. After also for the past couple of years watching like detailed accounts through social media of horrors of war and ethnic cleansing and things like that, I think there was just too much crossover for me, and it kind of it would bring me very quickly to like a very intolerable place. So I had to take a lot of breaks, and that was frustrating. And then the other thing is like some of this is like so in your face, not just with the descriptions, but also like what's happening, that it seemed unbelievable to me at first. Like, oh God, like you're trying so hard. But I think that was a wrong take. I think that's kind of the whole point, is like we can get to a place of just vile dehumanization and justification of that dehumanization, which is absurd to somebody who's not living in that world. But when you've been part of that desensitization process, you either to survive, you find ways to tolerate it and just ignore it, or you buy into it, and things of that nature. And I think actually it was really good critique on the ways in which humans dehumanize one another. Some people read this and took away like a criticism of factory farming, which also is a fine interpretation. But I think also it seems very clear to me that this book is looking at the ways that we justify the dehumanization of others. I think it's also like a critique of slavery, both like the way we traditionally see it, like American chattel slavery, but also like other forms of slavery that we don't call that like modern day slavery, but are essentially that. And I think it does a good job of like talking about how governments tend to capitalize on natural disasters, but also on man-made disasters. And so, yeah, I actually do think that there's a lot of value in this book. I think for me personally, it just took me getting over the initial frustration and horror of it all to like be able to like let it sink in and then get to like the more like not as obvious substance of it, which I do think is there. Like there's a lot of obvious substance too, but there's a lot deeper than that, I think. So yeah, I really did appreciate that. And then I don't remember honestly what happened at the end, but I remember it was just so unsatisfying, which is kind of perfect because isn't that life? Like that's just so fucking true. But I was just so frustrated that I don't think I've ever done this. Like I literally like threw my book. Like I was sitting on my couch and just like tossed it. I was so annoyed. I was like, are you kidding me? Like you put me through all that and now this, you know, but that's life, dude. So in a way I kind of appreciated that, like that the author did not fragilize me by trying to tie it up in a sweet bow and pretend like the good guys always win in the end. Like, nope. So yeah, Tender is the Flesh. I recommend if you can stomach it. If you feel like you can't, don't force yourself. There's other ways to like get that critique into your system without making you want to vomit every page. I also read The Serviceberry, Abundance and Reciprocity in the Natural World by Robin Wall Kimmerer. Robin Wall Kimmerer is a beautiful, beautiful author. I feel so grounded while reading her work, and I feel hopeful, and I feel so much like just gratitude for this world when sometimes learning about its humans and the actions of its humans make me feel the opposite. And so I really appreciate her writing for that. This book starts off as a reflection on the ways that nature gives to us and the relationship of reciprocity between all living entities, plants, humans, animals, and the responsibility that comes with, but not like responsibility like in a burdensome way, like in a like, wow, what an honor that I have this responsibility. Like, and I love her ways of looking at the world, and like I said, I feel so good and restored when I read her works. And then, so a lot of people loved the beginning part of her work. Some people feel frustrated by her critique of our capitalistic system in the end. But I think you can't have a true love for nature in this earth and not have some criticisms of capitalism. Like, I don't even know enough about other systems to say if I'm not capitalist. I know the basics, but I know it's a lot more nuanced and complex than what I know. But what is just inherently true is that capitalism also comes with wild, like abhorrent consequences, especially when not kept in check. And guess what? We're currently not checked really at all. And capitalism has brought this world to a absurd place. Just like the waste and the poisoning of the land, the water, the food. We have ground that cannot bear fruit, vegetables. Like it can't provide sustenance because we have just robbed it of its nutrients and exploited it. And so I don't understand. I don't know. Recently, like I've been almost like having this like constant like debate with myself. Like, am I too extreme in my views? Because I don't feel particularly radical. But people lately respond to me as though I'm some kind of like super crazy radical person. My philosophy is genuinely like, hey, we're people, we're fallible, we're gonna cause harm. When we cause harm, we have to take accountability and make repair in any way that we can, and do better so we don't keep doing that harm. And that, hey, like we shouldn't murder human beings. It's certainly not for an imaginary concept of wealth. Like I don't understand how that's radical, but apparently it is. And so apparently people didn't like that part. So I guess if you do decide to read it, go into it knowing that. But I really thought this was really, really great. Loved it. It's very short, so it's easy to get through. It's beautiful. Recommend. I'll try to make some of these other ones kind of quick. I am reading still Let This Radicalize You. I just dipped out of this and then haven't gotten back into it. But I do plan on finishing it. But I what's been keeping me away from it is that I have been reading a book that I got in the mail from the library, and I'm loving it. And that is this one, which is Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. This is so good. This book is talking about a group of girls in the 1970s who are teen girls who become pregnant, and they get sent away to these homes, right? And in these homes, it's like typical like shaming of the girls, not giving them any choices, not giving them any true informed decisions, any informed consent about anything. And basically just kind of storing them in these homes until they give birth to their baby, convince them that adoption is the only way, and then just send them on back to their lives. And what I think I was really surprised by, I've never read anything by Grady Hendrix, but the fact is that he's a man. And so I didn't expect him to very subtly, like not showing, but telling, like the day-to-day, seemingly small indignities, traumas, shaming, and how they take their toll on people, specifically in this case, these girls. From like, you know, the indignities and the terror of being a young girl and having to go to a doctor who doesn't know anything about trauma-informed care or consent, and is just like, yeah, like doing things to your body, not explaining what's happening, not even explaining like these girls are pregnant, and not even explaining like what's going to happen to them when they give birth. Like that would be terrifying. But also it's like the moment to moments of like, you know, just making comments about like how like you should be ashamed of yourself, you're trash, like, oh, if you were, the only good thing you can do for your child is to give them away, like just like all these like little moments. And Grady Hendrix does a phenomenal job of like showing you those, like you really feel it in the atmosphere, and I love that. I'm really excited to see where this book goes. I'm on page 72 of 400 something, but it's a quick, like you go through it quickly because it's so good and it's really easy to read. So yeah, I'm loving this. And then okay, sorry, I had to make sure my baby like didn't disappear. And then I'll have to make this really quick. The last two that I'm reading are about the same author. One is a poetry collection, and one is a book that he recently published, which is a nonfiction book. So the first one is the poetry collection. I've started this one. It's called Rifka by Muhammad Al-Kurd. This is a poetry collection that was published before the most recent reiteration of the ethnic cleansing in Palestine, and it's powerful. I don't always get the technical, grammatical structuring of poetry. I'm not that sophisticated in that way, I suppose. But I don't need to be to appreciate his work. The words that he uses and the essence of what he talks about are very clear, and they're very powerful. And I'll talk more soon, and maybe in an upcoming video, like maybe I'll share some specific lines that stuck out to me. And then I also picked up Perfect Victims and the Politics of Appeal by Muhammad Al-Kurd too. And I saw these in Haymarket book like emails, and I saw like an interview of the author, and he talked about it, and it made me want to pick it up. But essentially, like, I wanted to read it because, hold on, I have to come back because my baby is calling. Quick clip here, which I feel like I have to say that I look a little bit like funky because I have been recovering from a pretty significant corneal abrasion, and I like significantly underestimated how much that would just impact me in my overall like level of exhaustion, as well as like the fact that the constant like muscle movement of, it's my left eye, and this eye was in response to like the pain, led to like so many migraines that like I just feel like shit. So yeah, if my eyes look dead, that's why they're exhausted. I'm just now at the point where I can actually read a little bit with my good eye. I feel like a little pirate, like I have to like cover my but I've been reading a little bit of Decolonizing Therapy, and I'm in the part that's talking about the past and the history of the mental health care systems and how it is related to colonization. And in this specific part, the author, Jennifer Mullen, is really looking at, is often referencing this one paper. I'm not sure if it's a dissertation or not, but I really want to read it. I did go and download it, but I haven't really looked at it beyond that. I'm trying to like look it up while I'm doing this. But talking about how, like, what are the connections between the ways that medical providers during the antebellum, like, would justify plantation conditions, slavery conditions, and then also asylum conditions under the guise that, like, Black people, like, their natural state was subservience, right? And they tried to use all these like medical ways of, like, quote unquote proving that, and the ways that, like, the ways of the white people were clearly morally superior. And so really we were doing them a favor by, treating them in a lot of these ways, by locking them up, putting them in asylums, isolating them, and even enslaving them, because it helped them be in their natural state of subservience, right? And provided the moral teachings that they needed. Which of course is just dumb. It's so difficult for me, and it's not that I don't recognize what the author's doing. She's pointing out, like, that we still have ways of doing this today, and we need to really, like, open our minds to try to see, like, how we might be doing that, because of course back in the day these people really believed their own shit, and we might, as mental health care providers or people who support mental health care systems and services of people who care about mental health care, which I do, like, we might be unintentionally, like, also buying our own bullshit and perpetuating these systems, because certainly the legacy of medical racism has not gone away, right? Like, it's still here. We have to be really conscientious in seeing it. And so anyways, she keeps referencing this paper that I will be reading, which it's by this person named B.E. Myers II, published in 2014, and it's called Drapetomania, Rebellion, Defiance, and Free Black Insanity in the Antebellum United States. And so that's really interesting. And then one thing that the real purpose for me coming on and filming was to point out that I'm really noticing a correlation, of course, because it's top of mind for me, so I'm kind of primed to find the connections between the ways that medical providers back in the day rationalized the dehumanization of Black people, through the assumptions about who Black people inherently are and inherently aren't, to the ways that I've seen recently a lot of people, including a lot of mental health care providers, rationalize the dehumanization of, like, Palestinians or other Arabs and Muslims, people who otherwise, like, aren't overtly racist and really believe themselves to be anti-racist, but making, like, comments, in this case specifically towards like people of Middle Eastern descent, people that they would label as Arab or Muslim, and especially recently, given the global events, Palestinians, by saying, for example, like, well, like, their natural state seems to be, like, right, like inherently, like, terrorist, like, right, like they're inherently aggressive, they're inherently hostile, they're inherently violent, but they don't even seem to be realizing that they're making all these assumptions, even though they make statements that seem to be grossly obvious, like, oh, well, they're all terrorists, or like, it's a shame, but, like, they raise their kids to be that, like a Palestinian kid is really just like a terrorist in the making, right? Of course, I'm not espousing this idea. I have a fear that one of my clips where I'm being fucking sarcastic is going to be taken out of context. But, like, I see as she's describing, like, the specific ways in which people rationalize the dehumanization of Black people during times of slavery. I see it in the ways that we interact with other people now. And the interesting thing is that I think sometimes, because some of these people have done quote unquote anti-racist work, when it comes to Black Americans, they're more aware of their racist assumptions and their privilege. And I say more and not completely, because number one, we're never completely aware. That's an aspirational goal, but we're never there. But then also because like I feel like you fundamentally you cannot be racist and engaging in these kinds of dehumanization tactics of others and not have it come up with others, with other groups of people, even if you have some awareness. But it is interesting because like a lot of these people, like they have read some of the books, they've done some of the things, they've attended protests. And so like Black Lives Matter protests, and so like they genuinely think themselves to be above and beyond racism. But you see it so clearly in the way that they are approaching and thinking about Palestinians and other Middle Eastern people. And I think that's like, I'm also haven't reached this aspirational goal of like not being racist or being able to completely see through my own white supremacy. Like I don't believe that that's fully possible. I think that's part of the process though, is like recognizing that as much as I would like to say like, no, I'm no longer this person. I'm no longer, and I think it also is it's a problem with the way that we view like racism and why people get so defensive. Like I think people view having racist ideas or thoughts as, being a bad person, when in reality, both can be true. I can be a quote unquote good person, an otherwise good person. And what is also true is I will cause harm sometimes because of my racist assumptions and my racist blind spots and my privilege blind spots. And I think for me, the way that I conceptualize it is like the only way that I'm really being a bad person is if I refuse to feel the discomfort of recognizing when I have caused harm and refuse to make the repairs out of my own self-defensiveness, and then I just continue to cause harm and like deny it. That's what would make me, to me, a bad person, not the fact that I inherently have these racist ways of thinking and ways of viewing the world and being in the world based on my identity in this world and my position in this world. And so anyways, I just noticed all this to say like it, sometimes, it frustrates me sometimes like that so many well-intentioned but harmful white women, they'll say like, oh, I read a couple books, or I'm not overtly racist, so like I'm anti-racist now, like, but they don't use anti-racist as in like a set of goals or principles in which they live their lives. They see it as like a destination, an endpoint, like, okay, I've reached the pinnacle of not being racist. And it's not a coincidence that those are the same people that don't see their own obvious racism in other places. And it's something I've been thinking a lot about, and I've been trying to delve into the pre-existing research and the pre-existing like resources out there, but like how to open the conversation up specifically for white people and talk about like how do you really encourage white people to do anti-racist work and to really start to deconstruct their racism and their internalized colonialism and all of these isms, because I think like the defensiveness is so high, and it brings me to like this whole conversation that I won't have time to include in this video, but I think a lot about this is like I really think that a lot of our problems, our societal problems, come from the fact that we have no emotional intelligence and no emotional skills in this country, meaning like that the average person does not have these things. And it's not a fault of them as a person, it's not an inherent flaw, it's because we don't prioritize the teaching of these skills and the cultivating on a smaller level, nor on the larger levels. And I think a lot about like how could we try to implement more teaching of emotional intelligence, teaching of emotional regulation skills at these different levels. Because I really think that that could start to make a really big difference. Like what, just this one thing alone, I want to ask you, what do you think this world could be like? What do you think your world, just think about like the world that you're involved in, that you know in your day to day, how different would it be if more people than not had the ability to recognize when they have done something harmful, okay? And to be able to acknowledge that without shaming themselves and making themselves feel like this horrible person, but acknowledge, oh my gosh, you know what? Yeah, I messed up here and I caused harm. And then also went to repair it in an appropriate way to the person that was harmed, right? Like, you know what, I can't think of an example right now. I'll think of one later and put it in. But imagine how different the world could be if that could be a process that didn't feel so threatening. We would be out here apologizing and repairing all the time. We would have so much more connections and so many deeper, more intimate connections with people, with our land, with everything, if we were able to emotionally hold all of this. But I think that's such a complex set of skills that we don't prioritize or teach. And in fact, sometimes I think we teach the opposite. We teach people, no, if you have subtle views, you just don't, you're just not settling on a certain position. You need to be firm about what you think or don't think. Which one is it, right? Instead of like thinking about things complexly. And we also like are so rigid with the ways that we think about ourselves. Like, I'm either a good person or a bad person. We don't recognize that actually we're all of it. Like, I, of course, like within the framework that I was born into, like I want to feel like a good person. Of course, like I believe myself to be a good person. But the reality is it's not that straightforward. I have caused harm to people. I've caused real harm to people, and I will again. I have a daughter, and it kills me. It's like I'm still coming to emotionally accept this, as you can probably tell. But like, I know that at some point I will cause some kind of emotional harm to my daughter. I'm sure all parents do. And that's just a part of life. And the only real way we can help ourselves and help others is if we recognize the harm that we cause. And instead of being so defensive about it because we're so worried about ourselves, just accept, like, you know what? Like, the way that I am going to be a good person is through recognizing my harms and repairing, and of course trying to prevent them, but also recognizing that despite our best efforts, we're gonna mess it up, we're gonna get it wrong, and then repairing. How different would life be if we could do that? So I don't know, I just obviously love this topic. That's why I've been ranting on about it for, at this point, way too long. But I guess I'm just curious to know, like, what your thoughts are on the whole conversation of like what if we were able to acknowledge the harm we do and then make repairs without this huge self-shaming cycle, what the impact would be. And then also kind of what your thoughts are on the ways, like, I guess my premise, like, that a lot of societal problems occur in part because we don't have these, quote unquote soft skills. We don't have a lot of us don't, we're never taught, or we don't have the capacity, because we're overworked or we're in poverty or whatever, to recognize our own emotions and to stop before we respond or react to things, and instead like really kind of explore, like, wait, hold on, I'm noticing this sensation inside me, I'm noticing that I'm having these thoughts, and like checking ourselves and slowing it down, and then doing some skills like, whoa, I'm noticing like really extreme anger right now, but this person hasn't actually said anything that warrants this level of anger. I think I might be feeling defensive. Let me, do some slow breathing. Let me go do some tip skills, whatever I need to do to calm my body down first, and then come back and respond. Would you agree? I'm curious to know, like, do you agree with that, or do you feel that's not really a part of the problem or the solution? Everybody, I'm here to film a quick wrap up for this vlog. It's interesting. I noticed my urge to delete the other 2 clips that I included in this vlog due to numerous reasons. You know, I look back at those videos and I think, oh gosh, I look horrible, or oh gosh, my hair looks like I don't even comb it, which, like, for example, I just got out of the shower, I literally haven't combed my hair. And also, that's life as a mother, at least to like young children. Or I thought like, oh, you know what, when I wanted to talk about and summarize Tender of the Flesh, I forgot this thing, and if I don't say that thing, people are gonna think it didn't even occur to me, or they're gonna have judgments about my evaluation. All this noise and all this mental chatter, which is a constant interfering factor for me getting videos out and sharing things that then other people, at least a few other people, often respond to the reading vlogs and, you know, find something interesting or of value from it. And so I think I'm gonna push myself to just put this out. I don't know if any of you have this, but it's something that I worked on a couple years ago, and I think I've noticed the tendency kind of coming back slowly, which is I really used to over edit and over filter myself. And what I mean by that is, you know, I would want to make a joke, but then, oh, well, what if it offends this one person, or what if it gets taken out of context in a clip and then it gets shown here and then I look like this, and all of these fears about how I could be interpreted and I could cause harm potentially. And that is important to be aware of how you could be perceived, how you could be interpreted, and to try to do your best to minimize the likelihood of causing any kind of harm or offense. What's also true is it is impossible to be entirely inoffensive, to be entirely liked by everybody. And I'm not even sure I would want to, because in my life, when I've had times where I've tried more than I do now to do that, I was miserable, because you basically have to boil yourself down to subhuman, you know, something that's palatable for everybody is also palatable to no one, and certainly not yourself. So I think I'm gonna do some opposite action here and upload these clips, even though they're not exactly how I would like. And yeah, I look forward to hearing from you all. I know I'm planning on, like I said, I think in clip number 1, I'm planning on doing some upcoming vlogging related to my final month preparation before my wedding. I know I've been doing a lot of like fitness stuff, and I have been able to lose some weight that I've been wanting to lose, which has really helped my bones and my body and my muscles, and just feeling so much better even if I'm not sleeping. And I know that I'm gonna be probably doing some, like, I don't know, maybe some like makeup stuff. I'm debating, I think I'm gonna do my own hair and makeup for the wedding, because again, we're doing like pretty low key, you know, simple, and I think I can do makeup fairly okay. I think when I learned makeup is a little outdated from now, but like regardless, I think I can do okay. But I think my main thing is my hair. I do not know how to do hair. So, but I might like, maybe like if I try that, maybe I'll like include that here, and different things like that. So I will be vlogging that. I don't know how much reading I'm actually going to be doing in the next couple of weeks, because of all the preparation that we have to do for the wedding. And then right after that, well, a little bit after that, we're going to be moving out of state. So, but I will share that with you. And please let me know, you know, I genuinely want to know, like, if the content on this channel is like, if the audience, if the people who, if those of you who do watch are more interested in the vlogging style or like the sit down videos. I know that when I move, I will finally be able to set up a space where I'll be able to film, like sit down and film, and that's going to be really, really nice. I haven't had that in a couple of years. And so, you know, if I get the feedback like the vlogs, I'm losing my voice now all of a sudden, but if the sit down videos are preferred to the vlogs, then I'll start to try to transition to those more quickly. Otherwise I'll kind of keep on with the vlogs for a little bit, because it's easier for me to do right now. But let me know. Regardless, I'm gonna post this, as you're gonna see, and then I look forward to hearing about what you're reading in this month, in the coming months, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Bye.